If you've lived in Arkansas for any time, you know that our state's slogan, the natural state, is well deserved. But with over 50 state parks to choose from, it can be sometimes difficult to figure out where to go and what to do. And that's what this show is about. We're going to show you places that you can get to from Conway and be back home in time for dinner. Today, we're going to one of my favorite hiking and backpacking trails. It's the Ouachita Trail, more specifically, Section 11 from Highway 9 to the Nancy Mountain Shelter. So join us as we get away for a day. We're out here on the trail and I've got a very special guest with me. This is Bo Lee. He is the president of the Friends of the Ouachita Trail. Bo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Glad to be here, man.
Speaking with us. You know, first thing I want to ask you is, I've been hiking this trail for years.
Right.
And one thing that I couldn't really find out is, how did the Friends of the Ouachita Trail get started? For people that don't know, what is it all about?
Well, we're almost 20 years old. In about the year 2000, a major ice storm hit the Ouachita Forest and just pretty well obliterated the trail. So out of that came a bunch of stakeholders that put together this organization we call Friends of the Ouachita Trail. It's kind of ironic, we call ourselves FOOT, which I think is a very good, acronym to have. So out of that ice storm, we were about to lose the entire trail. It was in disrepair before that, but after the ice storm, it was in really bad shape. So out of that real bad situation came something very good. We have FOOT today.
So Bo, something that I wasn't aware of when I came out, I actually ran into one of your volunteers.
Right.
And they're doing a lot of this, they're cutting by hand, because in the National Forest in some sections, from what I understand, you can't bring in chainsaws and things like that.
That's true, and we have two wilderness areas, Flatside and Kiamichi over in Oklahoma. In those two wilderness areas, there can be no mechanized equipment, so you have to do it by hand. The Flatside Wilderness just west of here, that's about 15 miles. And when you have a blowdown, a major blowdown, you can imagine what it takes to clear that trail when you're doing it by hand. It's a big task.
Yeah. I understand that FOOT just completed all the shelters on the trail back in, was it 2016? Is that correct?
About 2 years ago,
About
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a project to finish out the shelter system on the OT, which meant going basically from Highway 27 above Mount Ida all the way to Oklahoma, mile marker 0. That entailed 12 new shelters. With our own internal money and grants, we was able to do that. It took us about 3.5 years to do that. But now we have an entire shelter system on the OT. I say entire OT, right here just east of us is where the National Forest ends. That's where the shelter system basically ends. 30 miles on in towards Little Rock with Central Arkansas Water and Timber Company, there's no shelters in there at this time. So anyway, we finished out those shelters, those 12, those new ones, and now we have 9 old ones to go with that. They were probably built 25 years ago, something like that. We hope to get all of those remodeled over the next 2 years. We've got a grant for that. When that happens, we'll have 12 new ones and 9 remodels, 21 shelters in the entire 192 miles of the Ouachita Trail, which is an amazing thing to have.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And what it's doing for us, a lot more people are starting to use the trail now with those shelters. So.
Yeah, and speaking of shelters, you've got one dedicated in your honor.
Yeah, the wife and I do. The last shelter we built at Suck Mountain, FOOT was very nice to give us the honor of putting a plaque in that shelter for us. So we really appreciate, what FOOT did for us on that. It was really an honor to have that done. To have, when we hike through there now and see that plaque, it's something special to see that.
Absolutely. Well, Bo, I want to thank you so much for coming out and meeting us today and letting the folks at home know more about, the Ouachita Trail and everything.
Glad to be here, and I encourage them. We're on Facebook, and they can also go to friendsot.org and get a lot more details on the shelters, water sources, anything they want to know about the trail. My contact information is in there. If anybody wants to contact me or any FOOT member, I encourage them to do so.
Absolutely. Bo, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming out today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We want to thank Bo Lee again for talking to us, and want to remind you that if you want to know more about the great work that the Friends of the Ouachita Trail are doing, or about the trail in general, their website is a tremendous resource. You can check that out on the link listed on your screen. Go look it over. They've got great maps and more information to let you know anything that you need to know about getting started with getting out on the trail. And speaking of that, right now we're going to go and talk about the 10 essential things that you need to have in your bag before you start your adventure on the Ouachita Trail. So we're about to hit the trail. Before we do, we've got to talk about something that's very important. When you're going out on a hike to, say, Petit Jean, or to hike Pinnacle, there's tons of people out there. It's not a very long distance that you're going to go. Usually you can just take a bottle of water and get away with it. But when you're doing something like the Ouachita Trail, you're going to be out kind of by yourself, with just you and your friends and family. So it's important to have what are called the 10 essentials with you when you go on a hike like this. And we're going to go through those, and they're in our pack right here. The first thing that you're going to need is a map. And again, you can get these from our friends at the Friends of the Ouachita Trail on their website, and a compass to tell where you're going. Now, if you don't want to carry that and you don't have access to a printer, you can also use your phone. There are a ton of apps that you can use. A really good one that I use is called All Trails. What you need to do though is you need to download the map to your phone in order to have it work all the time out here, because sometimes you'll have GPS, but you won't have cell signal. The next thing that you're going to need is a headlamp. If you get going too far out, it gets dark. It gets dark pretty quick sometimes, so having that is always good. The next thing you're going to need, especially this time of year, it's really important, is sun protection. So I've got a good SPF 50 here for my flowing mane of hair that I lack, so that will help. But also carry a hat if you need it, or sunglasses if you don't wear prescription lenses. It's always a good thing to have. The other thing that you're going to need, and we've already found a need for it today with a few ticks that we found on ourselves, and that is some bug spray. Now, the next thing you're going to need besides all that is a knife or a multi-tool. It just comes in handy. You never know when you're going to need it. Next thing we're going to need is some extra clothes. Now, I'm carrying a jacket because if I get stuck out here too late, I've checked the weather and it could get down into the 40s or low 50s. We don't want to be stuck without something to keep ourselves warm. The other thing when I talk about clothing to have is some sort of rain gear. I've got just one of those hooded ponchos that you can get from gas stations or Walmart. It's a good thing to have. It fits in your pack really well. Now, the other thing that gets important is the essentials of life, and that is water and food. And you need to have plenty of water, and you also need to have a way to make more. And we're going to talk about this later in the program, more specifically on how to treat and purify water. But this is a life straw. You can also have something like a water purification tablet, which are these. Either of these work, and they're pretty inexpensive options, but it's something you do need to have, especially on a warm day. You're going to go through more water than you think you would. The other thing that's very important to have is food, but more importantly is enough for an extra day beyond what you thought you were going to be out here. Because if something happens to you, you need to have backups. The other thing you're going to need to have is a first aid kit. These can be bought or you can make your own. Really, the most important things to have in here are bandages and antiseptic wipes, but also some anti-allergens and some stuff like aspirin, just in case. But buying a little pre-made first aid kit is always a good idea, and make sure that it's equipped for the number of people that are going, to have enough supplies for everyone. You also need some matches or some other way to start a fire. And also what I do is keep a little duct tape on my matches. That's another thing, is something to repair your, let's say your emergency shelter gets a hole in it, or you start getting a blister and you just don't have enough blister pads. Duct tape fixes everything, so that's another thing to have. Now, the last thing, but certainly not least, is an emergency shelter. And this is one that is a little more robust. It has grommets on it so that you can tie it off and stake it down. But really, you could get one of those inexpensive ones that they sell for car emergency kits. That's just one that I have because I go out a lot. Now, this list is pretty exhaustive and it's certainly not complete. There are other things you might want to have, like toilet paper, probably a good idea. But these are the most important things to have out there. And if you would like to see a full rundown of this list before you head out on your own adventure and get away for a day, you can check out the website listed on your screen. Stay with us and we'll be right back.
When Conwegians cry out for programming freedom, a legend will rise to bring power to them all. Ninja 2. See the interface that has critics raving. Sleek new look. Love the customizable menu and filters. Whoa, there's my Netflix. Ninja 2, powered by Conway Corp. Now playing on a screen near you.
Manage your home from anywhere with Conway Corp Home Security. Access and arm your security system from your mobile device. Monitor live video and control your lights and thermostat when you're away. Plus, get app and email alerts for fast notification. We make it easy to protect what matters. Peace of mind for you, powered by us.
Okay, our bag's packed with our 10 essentials and we're ready to hit the trail. But before we head out, I want to talk really quick about what I feel is the 11th essential. And that's just letting someone know before you head out where you're going to be and what time they can expect you back. Now, we've done that, so we're ready to go. The section we're hiking today from Highway 9 to the Nancy Mountain Shelter is about 2.3 miles and has a few small climbs. On our program, we use a scale of 1 to 5 Ashtons to determine how difficult this would be for someone who may be smaller or not the most athletically inclined. And yes, we named this after the editor of our program, who keeps us in check when we're out there in the field. We gave this hike a rating of 2 Ashtons. This means we feel that most people who are capable of walking 2 to 4 miles can do this with occasional breaks. Okay, looks like we've come to our first teachable moment out here, and that is crossing a log. Now, I know a lot of you at home may be saying, yeah, you just step over it. Well, you know, normally you could, but the reason I caution against doing that is because it's the spring, this time of year. Snakes sometimes like to stay in the shade on the other side of a log. So rather than just stepping over like that and stepping unseen to where you're putting your foot into the unknown, it's better sometimes to just, if you got a walking stick, put it there. Take a step up on top of the log, see if you can peek over and see something. Looks like we're all clear. Just step on top and keep on going. All right, it's a hotter day than we thought it was going to be, and I went through my first canteen. And so this is a good moment to kind of teach you some best practices for water purification. We've stopped here at a little creek, then the water is running well, and that's an important thing to note, that the water is running. You don't want to get water from a stagnant pool. That's where germs can typically thrive. So running water is always a good idea. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my canteen, I'm going to put it on the top of the surface of the water. I'm not going to get it down in the dirt because then we're just going to get a bunch of sediment. I'm going to slowly fill it up, making sure not to get any dirt in there. Maybe a little bit more. There we go. Keeping the high side, making sure I don't get any sediment in there. And then if I was going to use these purification tablets, what I would do is put them in there now. Now these do a better job than some of the others, but they take a really long time. So for our purposes today, we're not going to use these. Instead, we're going to use our life straw to drink from this. Now these things are great because you don't have to worry about purifying and waiting 4 hours like I was talking about with those pills. Instead, you just dip it in the water for about 10 seconds, let the filter kind of soak up the water, and then you just drink right from the straw. Now, one thing to note about the straw is you do not want to get contaminated water on the tip where you're going to be drinking from. Down here, okay, make sure you don't get any contaminated water down there. But now that I've refilled my canteen, we can continue our trek. right, looks like we made it. Now all that's left to do is make some lunch. To do that, we've got to build a fire. So stay with us, we'll be right back, and when we come back, we're going to show you some best practices for doing that.
In a world ruled by restraint, programmed for conformity, a legend is reborn. Ninja 2, transforming whole home DVR and high-speed internet with the power to customize your menu layout. Access the on-demand library, filter content by category, group your favorite apps, and much more. It's the sequel you never saw coming. Ninja 2 from Conway Corp.
Prevent break-ins with Conway Corp Home Security. Arm windows and doors with sensors plus motion detectors throughout the house. All monitored 24/7. See inside and out with live video feed and control it all with your all-in-one touchscreen panel or from your mobile device. We make it easy to protect what matters. Security for you, powered by us.
All right, welcome back. So we're going to get our lunch and kind of take it easy and relax here at the Nancy Mountain Shelter. But before we do, we've got to build a fire so we can boil some water and get our food ready. Now, if you know how to build a fire already, then you know this is probably just going to be redundant to you. But there are a lot of people that, you know, their idea of building a fire might be to throw some gas and some paper and on a fire and it's good to go. Well, of course, in the woods you don't have that. So there are a few things you've got to do special. The first thing you've got to keep in mind is that you have to feed a fire slowly. And what I mean by that is you want to get small things first. If we just started right away with our big logs here, they would never light. So we want to start with things like bark, maybe even some dry leaves, not very much because they smoke more than they burn, but little pieces of what do you call kindling that are really dry and small pieces of wood. From there, we can go to bigger sticks, things like that, making again sure that they're dry. Now, I keep stressing dry, and why I do that is because we're fortunate today. It hasn't rained in probably a week, but if it's rained recently when you go on your trip, you never want to pick the sticks off the ground. They've been sitting right there on that topsoil and they've soaked up all the water and they're never going to burn. So what you want to do is get a stick like we have here that we've pulled out of a tree that was hanging from a limb, and make sure that it's nice and dry. As you can see there, it snaps really well, and then you can use those limbs. And then if you're going to try to find bigger logs, you want the same principle. Maybe try to find some sticks that are you know, off the ground laying on another log. But to be honest with you, you don't really need big logs, because if you're building a fire just to get some water boiling, you know, a small stick about, you know, that size or this size may be all you need just to get that water cooking. So we're going to get right on that and enjoy some lunch. Thanks so much for joining us today. We got our bag packed, we got our fire put out, a stick put in the middle to let the other hikers know that it's a dead pit, and we're getting out of here. We've had a really great day, and hope you learned a lot. If you have a place that you would like to tell about, that you love to get away for a day, please email us at the email address listed on your screen. Also, if a lot of the tips and tricks went by a little quick for you, you can get that information on the website listed. Until we see you again, hope you have a fun time getting away for a day.